Hello everyone, and welcome to the Athens Fellowship video blog for 2009. My name is Joseph Skarzensky, and I'm this year's Next Generation Initiative student correspondent. Today we began our program with a very busy schedule. We started this morning with a visit for a briefing at the Embassy of Greece, and continued with another visit to the Embassy of Cyprus. It was a nice walk, maybe a block down, and following our visit with the ambassador in Cyprus, we had lunch with the Senior Vice President of the European Institute. Following lunch, we went to the State Department for a briefing from a Greek desk officer to learn about how the Greek embassy interacts with the U.S. government. And following that, we took a quick visit to the Capitol to visit a congresswoman, and we concluded our night in Baltimore having dinner with former Senator Paul Sarbanes. So this year's video log is going to feature a lot of video clips, little bits and pieces from different visits we have throughout the day. And we like to call them sound bites if you ever watch the news and whatnot. But our first video clip for today, for today's program, is going to include one of the consuls from the Greek embassy. He's actually the head of the consulate. His name is Kostas Alexandris, and he was just welcoming us to the embassy.
And I would like once again to congratulate Mr. Stavro on his initiative. I consider this Next Generation Initiative to be, a very significant one. And it's always a pleasure for us here at the embassy to outreach prominent members of the academic community, especially with Greek background. So is common ground among us. So I'm the head of the consular section of the embassy. That means that what we do at the consular section is dealing mainly with Greek citizens here in the United States with administrative stuff, for example, passports or power.
Consul Alexandris continued his discussion with our group, talking about what he does with the consulate and how it works within the embassy in Greece, and what they do with the United States government. After discussing his job with us for a little bit, the Deputy Chief of Mission, Carlos Gadis, showed up to our group discussion, and he introduced himself and started discussing what are some of the big concerns at the embassy right now in Greece. He talks a lot about post-Olympic changes in the country, the big issue of illegal immigration, which is becoming more and more prominent concern for the Greek government. He also talked about some of the advancements that are being made, such as the TGI pipeline, relations with the EU, and from that point on we discussed mainly the issue with Turkish troops in Cyprus. And that was a big concern for a lot of students because some of us have Cypriot roots, and a lot of questions were asked on the issue of Cyprus. We don't have any video from that part of the discussion, but we do have this clip showing the Deputy Chief of Mission coming into the room, introducing himself, and welcoming the Athens Fellowship to the Greek embassy. So, take a look.
Sorry for the delay. Sometimes in the morning there is a lot of work, a lot of calls. So I'm very pleased. Mr. Oyorio, please have a seat, Aris. So we are very pleased you are here. Are you traveling for this when?
On Friday.
Friday we leave. Friday. Okay. It will be a trip for how many?
A week in Athens.
Sorry?
1 week in Athens.
1 week in Athens?
Yes.
Only?
That's it.
And then back?
And then back.
You don't go to the islands?
No.
You may have noticed another official who walked in while the Deputy Chief of Mission was speaking to us in the last clip. His name is Aris Papageorgiou. Mr. Papageorgiou is actually the press attaché for the embassy in Greece. His job mainly entails evaluating and monitoring any news or events that are relevant to the embassy, and also reports back to the government in Greece. After having a brief conversation with Mr. Papageorgiou, the group left the embassy of Greece and headed directly for the embassy of Cyprus. There we were greeted immediately by the ambassador himself, Andreas Kokouris. The briefing Mr. Kokouris gave was very appealing to many students. He focused mainly on the issue of the Turkish invasion of troops in 1974 and their current presence in Cyprus today. In the next clip, The ambassador focuses on his career as an ambassador and in the field of foreign service, and how the issue of Cyprus has affected him. A lot of students were really touched by the speech he gave on the Cypriot issue of the Turkish troops and how serious it really is.
And especially when you're a small country that has a situation that we do. Not that I'm going to change US policy, but even if you're able to get one person, when I go to a lecture, to leave that room and say, this is wrong, that is one person that knows about Cyprus that didn't know it before. The grass is always greener on the other side, some would say. So being in the diplomatic service also means that every 4 years you get this beautiful container that comes outside your door, a 40-foot container. And I arrived in the United States for my first posting in 1984 with 2 suitcases. single mid-20s with 2 suitcases, Valentine's Day 84. Left 5 years later with a 40-foot container, an American wife, and a son. So America, as they say, has been very good to me. But everything that you own goes in that.
Following our visit to the Embassy of Cyprus, our group was off to lunch with Senior Vice President of the European Institute, Maria Papathanasou. At lunch we learned about what the European Institute does, which includes the publication of a magazine called European Affairs. The conversation of what was in the European Affairs led to discussion of Eurozone and changes in European economies such as Greece after converting to the Euro. We also talked about education reform in Greece after looking at some of the problems that exist in the current system. After lunch, we were off to the United States State Department, where we had a briefing with a Greek desk officer. We learned a lot about foreign service and what job and titles mean to the State Department of the United States. We also learned about how the Greek embassy works with the United States government through the State Department. After meeting with the Greek desk officer, we were off to the Capitol building. At the Capitol, we met U.S. Representative Nikki Tsongas. Congresswoman Tsongas talked to us briefly about her experience in Congress since becoming a member in 2007. After she opened up discussion for a Q&A, some students talked about the new energy policy that's coming up for a vote in the House of Representatives. Here's a clip from another question asked by one of the
office for a short time, but we were just at the Cypriot ambassadors today, the embassy, and talking about the Cyprus problem. Have you addressed that issue so far? Or?
Well, legislatively on the floor of the House, no.
Nothing has
happened. I am a member of the Hellenic Caucus, I think we call it that, with all the Greek American. I'm not actually Greek American myself, but my husband was Greek American, and our kids are half Greek American. So the caucus has sent President Obama encouraging him to re-engage around this issue and try to resolve it, but it hasn't happened. With everything else that's happening, I think a lot of things in politics are about timing.
We concluded our day by going to Baltimore for the night. There we had dinner with former Senator Paul Sarbanes. Following our meal, we had a wonderful conversation with him in a small park in the city. In today's last clip, Mr. Sarbanes ends our conversation by giving us some advice as leaders of the next generation.
You're all still building, so to speak, and you have to do that. I mean, but you need, to the extent you can, consistent with that, to kind of take an interest in what's going on around you, to be knowledgeable about it. But I mean, the Greek American community has done very well. You have to think in terms of meeting that demand or those standards in the workings of American society.
Thank you very much for watching the first episode of the video blog from the Athens Fellowship program. I'm Joseph Skarzensky saying good night from Washington, D.C.